Lots of people talk about chasing their dreams, but how many actually do it? Welcome to the Pursue Your Passion podcast with Tyler Kammerman. We're going to introduce you to people who are intentionally pursuing their passion every day. Through their stories of success and their struggles, you'll gain insight into how to better begin or continue your journey. Now here's Tyler with today's guest.
Welcome back, Passion Pursuers. Excited to have you along for another episode of the Pursue Your Passion podcast. Today's guest is going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited. I've been a little bit of a fanboy for maybe a decade now, but Sheryl Moore, welcome to the show, Sheryl.
Thanks, Tyler. It's good to be here.
Sheryl is the president and CEO of Moore Market Intelligence. She is also the founder and creator of several competitive intelligence tools, including Wink's Annuity Specs and Life Specs tools, as well as Wink's Sales and Market Report and Wink's Index Intelligence Report. Moore Market Intelligence specializes in providing competitive intelligence tools to the insurance industry, particularly the indexed life and annuity market. Ms. Moore provides competitive intelligence, market research, product development, consulting services, and insight to select financial services companies. Now, prior to forming Moore Market Intelligence, she was the manager of a competitive intelligence unit for a multi-line global insurer. In addition, she gained an intimate knowledge of indexed products and markets as the market research analyst in charge of competitive intelligence for both life and annuity lines of business with an insurer that was both number one in both life and indexed annuity sales. She's also the co-author of the Encyclopedia to Index Products, Annuity and Life, and her research and articles are regularly featured in insurance trade publications and a lot of other awesome resources, including, and I'm sure you all have heard of these, the Wall Street Journal, Forbes, and New York Times, just to name a few. For those in Central Iowa, she's been in the Des Moines Register a ton of times. She's also worked closely with the media as a fact-checking resource on life insurance and annuities and spent 5 years correcting every misleading or inaccurate article published on indexed products. Once again, welcome to the show, Sheryl. I'm excited to talk to you.
Thanks, Tyler. I'm excited about this.
Awesome. Now, for all you passion pursuers, I know that was a lot of industry lingo right there. So before you tune out, I got to tell you, the reason that I asked Sheryl to the show is because the passion with which she goes after and promotes and talks about life insurance and annuities. She's a passion-filled person, so don't let the lingo that this former financial advisor gets all excited about scare you off. This is going to be an awesome conversation, and I'm really excited about it. So Sheryl, I like to kick off the show with, I talked about it a fair bit in the bio there, but talk to us about the passion or passions that you are currently pursuing.
You know what? The passion for what I do comes from the fact that I've had personal experiences with life insurance and annuities. On the life insurance side, I actually had a child who took his own life, and I had life insurance on him. So I had the benefit of receiving financial assistance from my life insurance policy when I lost my son. But then on the annuity side, I have elderly grandparents that I cared for at the end of their life, and they struggled to make ends meet because they lost money in the 2008 market collapse. And their retirement choice of product was a 401k. They had never heard of annuities, and they would have never had to lose money in their 401k had they heard about annuities. And so I'm very passionate about getting more Americans educated on these products, just because I feel like if they knew about them, then they'd probably choose them because they'd be right for them. So I just am really on a pursuit to educate people about life insurance and annuities so that they can make sure that they know whether or not they're right for them.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so many times it's not, just an idea that comes to people's heads. It's the passion that they end up walking, chasing after is because of something that happened in their life. So, based on the time that you've been in this industry, my assumption is that both of those life circumstances that you just shared with us, those happened after you already had a fair bit of knowledge in this area. Is that correct?
Well, the episode with my grandparents really happened when I first started in the life insurance industry and really didn't know about annuities at that point,
Okay.
but was familiar with life insurance. But absolutely, my son passed away after I'd been in the life insurance industry for almost a decade.
Gotcha. So was it your experience with your grandparents, or what kind of led you, maybe talk to us a little bit about what led you up to, starting this pursuit of knowledge and jumping into life insurance and annuities?
Well, I was married to a police officer who went to federal prison. I became a single mom of 3 babies in diapers all at the same time. And I didn't have any child support. So I had to re-enter the workforce. I had been a stay-at-home mom and I lived in Des Moines. And so I thought, what can I do in Des Moines, Iowa, where if my company folds or I get my position eliminated, I can walk across the street and pick up where I left off without missing a beat. And in Des Moines, Iowa, that means insurance. We have almost 100 insurance companies in the Des Moines metro area. So I applied for a customer service job working for a company who is today known as Athene on the annuity side and Global Atlantic on the life insurance side. And I just asked a lot of questions at the insurance company until I started moving up in my positions. I eventually ended up being the head of competitive intelligence and product development for the company. But when I started learning about annuities in that role, it was just like, oh, wow, this is exactly what I wish I would have bought instead of this 401k. And let me talk to my grandparents and see if they've heard about it, because, they're struggling and thinking about living too long and outliving their retirement. This sounds perfect for them. So I actually started asking people like at church or my neighbors or friends, like, hey, have you heard of this product where if you put your money into it, they'll send you a paycheck every month for the rest of your life, even if you live to be 150 years old. And you never have to lose money as a result of the market's fluctuations. And people were like, wow, no, what is that? I'm interested. And so I really feel passionate about annuities, more so than the life insurance even, just because so few people know about them. And when they think they know about them, usually they've heard negative publicity or biased information, which is inaccurate. So that's the personal experience that really drove me to be passionate about educating people on these products.
Is your education more B2B, working directly with financial advisors? Is it working mostly with consumers, or is it a mix of both?
It's a mix. Actually, I would say the bulk of my education is done working with the media, just because I do work as a fact checker, as you had mentioned in my bio, and they have the ability to reach hundreds of thousands of people through reading their newspaper or magazine. So that's my main line of education. But then behind that would be advisors. And I write articles for consumers to understand these products as well. But I would definitely say the trade journals and magazines, newspapers would be the first group of people that I serve with my educational resources.
Talk me through how you went from customer service to, kind of leading the product development or intelligence piece, like you said, how that grew into Wink and the different subsidiaries, for lack of a better word. Like, talk us through how you went from employee to on your own and how things blossomed from there.
Yeah, so I was really happy doing my job. Working in competitive intelligence and product development. I loved what I did. I never wanted to do anything else, but my son was born with cleft lip and cleft palate. And the insurance company that I worked for switched their health plan so that it wouldn't cover his surgeries anymore. So I was kind of without any choices and had to leave my employment to go work at Principal Financial Group, just like you.
Okay.
Interestingly, I made it about 8 months before I wanted to spoon my eyes out. That's mostly because Principal distributes their products primarily through a career agency distribution, which means those agents that sell Principal life insurance can only sell Principal's products with very few exceptions. And so for that reason, career agency distribution and competitive intelligence are oxymorons, just because if I had $1 for every time they said to me, Sheryl, they'll sell what we give them because they have to, I would be rich. So I quickly became disenfranchised with my position there, started looking for other options to work in competitive intelligence or product development. But I was challenged just because most product developers are actuaries. And I'm not even really great at math, to be 100% honest with you. I rely on Microsoft Excel like a crutch. So I did not have any luck finding any one of those 100 insurance companies that had a job doing what I did. And so I did what I had to, and I cashed out what was left of my 401k and started a company 18 years ago. Initially, I thought, oh, I'm going to be a consultant, because people were calling me all the time about indexed life insurance and indexed annuities and saying, I don't understand this. Can you help me? And I had established a reputation in the competitive intel community for being knowledgeable about these products. So I was used to working with people who did what I did at other insurance companies. But what I didn't realize was that being a woman in the man's world of life insurance is a challenge.
Sure.
And I didn't look old enough to belly up to the bar. So I made my first pitch for a really big product at a company called Allianz Life. And the chief marketing officer said he had pimples on his ASS that were older than me and asked why he should listen to anything I have to say. And that kind of deflated my balloon a little bit.
I'll bet.
So I put the consulting business on the back burner, and I decided to start a market research firm that we today call Wink. And Wink has this huge database of life insurance and annuity products that kind of shows what all the products' features are, what their rates are. I tell consumers that are not familiar with the lingo that we're kind of like the Progressive of life insurance and annuities, where, if you want to go in and compare rates, you can do that. But that's how Wink started. And Today I have 10 employees. And Wink does business with over 180 different insurance companies. Wow. Not only do we have that database of products, but we're the ones who track the sales of these products. So when you see that, for example, Jackson National Life is the #1 seller of variable annuities, our company is the one that says that. And we get that information, pre-publicized in brochures and newspapers and all sorts of resources.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. And you know what? I think to people listening, it may sound like, life insurance and annuities, but I really dig it. At first, I didn't care about it either. But when I became an expert on it, I really started to dig it. And I would say that if you took away my ability to work in the life insurance industry today, I'd be terribly depressed. I love what I do.
Well, and I think, I think people understand, and I've got, a slew of questions that are popping into my head, but I think people understand, at least, we can get really nerdy when it comes to the different ways you can use life insurance. But I think people understand the basic concept of life insurance, right? You put a certain amount of money away, and when someone passes away, there's a death benefit, right? So the majority again, I'm speaking high level terms, but the majority of life insurance use is for death benefit, to make sure that you're taken care of in the loss of a loved one. Again, you get into planning and business succession and all of that stuff, and that, you can get really tricky. I agree with you. Most people don't understand the way that an annuity works. Let's not go again to the level that I'd want you to explain it to a group of financial professionals, but talk a little bit about, and you hit on it real briefly in your explanation, but talk a little bit about how an annuity works. And then also a second piece to that is, you and I both know we've heard the horror stories, maybe hit kind of the top one misconception, while you're talking about what an annuity is.
Sure. So an annuity is a financial services product where if you place a lump sum of money in the annuity, it will, at some point that you decide, start making payments to you on a monthly basis. And it will continue to make payments to you until the day that you die, no matter how long you live. And even, let's say you put in $100,000 into an annuity and you were taking out $10,000 a year. Well, even after you had had your payments for 10 years, it would keep paying you the $10,000, even though you had already recouped the amount that you had paid into the annuity. The interesting thing about annuities is that the media gets it wrong so frequently, just because there are lots of different financial services experts. And so the media will frequently go to a wrong kind of expert and ask about annuities, and they'll give bad information. So one of the top misconceptions about annuities is they have high fees. Well, there is one type of annuity that has fees, but there's like 3 other types that don't have fees. And that means the majority of annuities do not have fees on them. And yet the media frequently says annuities have high fees. So that's probably the number one misconception that I get. But certainly there's a lot of people who think that with an annuity, if you purchase one and you die the next day, you lose your money. And that's not true of the vast majority of annuities. Most of them will pass on the full value to your loved ones when you pass away. So there's a lot of misconceptions, but it all boils down to the media looking for experts and getting the wrong people when they're reporting on these products.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was just thinking, overthinking things like I like to do. I suppose even though I'm not actively selling things anymore, I am still securities licensed. So I should probably make a disclaimer like, hey, these are not recommendations. If you're going to look into annuities, you need to talk to a financial services professional. There's my, hopefully that's my disclaimer.
There you go.
But I love the way that you said that, because for me, I got very disenfranchised because I saw a particular type of annuity getting sort of force fed in the role that I was in.
Yeah.
But after getting my retirement income certified professional, I went, okay, I don't, annuities may not be for everyone in every single situation, but it's the one place where I can create a guaranteed stream of income. Really the only place that I can create a guaranteed stream of income outside of a pension, and with pensions getting fewer and farther between. I mean, it's very rare that you talk to somebody that, well, I guess as a financial services professional, they're still out there, but it's very rare that you're stepping into a new job and a pension is one of the things that's offered to you. So yes. I think that, that's the piece that people overlook. And like you said, they hear about all the high fees and that freaks people out. And so annuities are ultimately bad. But, for me, it's the one place where you can still create a guaranteed stream of income.
Yeah. I like to boil it down and say annuities are a way to create your own personal pension.
Yep. Yeah. That's a very succinct and great way to say it. Thank you, for kind of walking us through where you're at. And I didn't, you mentioned the thing about Jackson National. And again, I know this is, only news to a few people that are listening. But for me, I've read, hey, this one is number 1, this is number 2. I did not know that market research was coming from a small business in Des Moines. I love it.
Yeah. Well, we're working on taking over the competitive intelligence world. So keep watching us. We're doing great things.
I love
Tyler.
that. So, Sheryl, the journey has been, 15, I think you said 15 or 20 years. What's been the biggest success in that journey, or what are you the most proud of?
Honestly, the part that I'm most proud of is that I'm able to support 10 people who are my employees in this business. Just because I remember when I first developed annuity specs, which was my primary source of revenue and still is, but the very first product I was offering, I remember the day I got my very first subscription. And people at that time paid $300 a year to have access to annuity specs. And I still remember like being so happy. I jumped off my deck into the pool and was screaming and excited about it, But at that time, the goal was, okay, Sheryl, you need to make enough money to support yourself and your
Right.
family and make sure that you have health insurance to cover your son's surgeries. So that was the goal. And now I'm at a point where it's like I'm supporting 10 families and making sure that there's food on the table every night. And so really that's what I'm most proud of, is that I'm able to support these great people who work with me and put food on the table for their families.
I love that outlook. Obviously we got to worry about P&Ls and all the metrics and all the stuff, but when you boil it down to that, it makes going to work a little more inspiring every day. That, hey, we get to we get to provide, together we get to provide for 10 different families now instead of just one. And I guess as we're talking about 10 employees, as you continue to look forward, do you want to, is the plan to grow more? Or are you at a spot where like, hey, this is the spot where we're going to stay nimble and be the most efficient?
I have very lofty aspirations for my business. So I can easily see us having 50 employees at some time in the future. I'm taking a really big risk here in the second quarter of the year and hiring an actuary to come and work for us. We're working on creating illustration software for life insurance companies. So we've got a lot of big enhancements on the horizon that definitely will grow our staff and grow our business. And I'm scared about it. They're risky moves, but I've learned that there is no reward without risk. Right. So I'm going in. I'm excited about it.
Awesome. Are there any, one of the questions that I always like to ask also is like, what dream or goal haven't you reached yet? You mentioned lofty aspirations. What's one or some of the dreams or goals that you haven't attained yet that you're reaching for?
Well, honestly, I'm looking forward to being in business 20 years just because I look at the statistics for the failure of small businesses, and I remember reading about those stats and making it 1 year into my business and going, yes, I beat the odds, I've done it. And then again, at 3 years, there's a huge amount of small businesses that fail. So at 3 years, I was partying like a rock star just because I knew that I had beat the statistics. So I'm excited for 20 years, but I'm also pumped about hitting 5 million of revenue, which we should do within the next couple of years. So that has been a goal for me that I'm excited about. But hiring the actuary is another big thing. Like when I started my business, I thought, well, someday I'll probably need to hire an actuary. And now I'm getting to that point. So, I'm always focusing on a new goal. And then when I crush it, I try and come up with something else that I'm focused on.
Yeah, that's awesome. You know what? On that topic, do you have a system? When you say you love setting goals and then crushing them and you go to the next, do you have a particular kind of goal setting mantra or, spreadsheet or something that you work from, or not necessarily?
So we have this giant whiteboard in my office where we, use marker and write what our next goal is, as well as about 9 goals after that. And we number them and go after them one by one. And when we meet one goal, we have the employees get to wipe off that line off of our whiteboard and we just go on to the next thing.
Awesome. So it's a whole team. I mean, I'm guessing, share, you probably have your own personal goals, but as far as the business goes, it's a collaborative effort.
Absolutely. I don't operate this business in a vacuum. My employees are extremely integral to the success of my business, and I lean on them quite heavily. They each run their own little business within my business, and they're very self motivated, hardworking people. And so I like to include them. And you know what? To the point where they chose the name for this business. We hired a marketing company to help us with our branding, and they had come up with the name of Wink, and I did not like it. But my employees voted me out and said they did. So Wink is the name of the company today, regardless of how I feel.
That's awesome. I love that. Now, talking, it's evident that your employees are very important to you. Are you sole owner, or are there partners within the organization?
No, I'm the sole owner, but one of my employees is the president of the company. Okay. I just serve as the CEO and the chairwoman.
Gotcha. That's very cool. And have a lot of them kind of come up with you, like mostly longer term employees?
Yeah, so we have some unique benefits of working for my company that you can't find in a lot of places. We have casual attire, unlimited paid time off, a 36-hour work week, full body massages for all the employees once a month, not by me, but by a trained masseuse. And then I have a retirement benefit for my employees where I will dump 25% of their salary into a simplified employee pension retirement plan every year. And for that reason, my employees tend to be highly tenured. I have people who've been working here for 17 of the 18 years that my business has been in place. So I like to keep people. I like them to stay around. And so I provide really rich benefits to make sure that when I find good people, I hold on to them.
Good for you. That's awesome. I think that's getting to be a bigger and bigger challenge for small businesses. So well done. That's awesome.
Thank you.
So been focused on the positives here for a little bit. What's been your biggest setback or struggle that you faced, with the business, or you mentioned some things personally as well, but one thing that you'd be willing to kind of talk about, and how did you overcome it?
So I don't want to, bring down the parade on your podcast, but when my son passed away 10 years ago, it's the most devastating thing that you can go through to lose a child. And it really got to the point where I had lost my passion for what I did, just because, I wasn't bathing regularly. I wasn't able to care for my other children. I relied on my husband for all of that, and I just kind of withered. And so I continue to come to the office every day. I think I took like 2 weeks off when he passed away. But then I came back into the office with the hopes that doing my work would give me some sort of semblance of normality and help me come out of my depression. And I will say it didn't help me come out of my depression, but it definitely helped me to do things outside of the house, which I needed to get out of bed every day,
Sure.
So it left me on autopilot. I mean, I was just existing.
Yeah.
And I continued to make choices in my business, just like I'd always done. I wasn't thinking outside the box. I'll give you one big example of how that detrimented my business. I used to pay an outside web development firm for my website, and it got to the point where one year I was going to pay them $800,000. And I had just been operating, business as usual, doing all the same things I'd always done because of my depression.
Yeah.
And it didn't occur to me, hey, you should bring this in-house because you can pay people a lot less than $800,000 to do this.
Right.
But I was just on autopilot. And so it really took coming out of that depression and realizing that I needed to be in the business in a way I hadn't been for a very long time in order to ensure the success and, make sure my business would thrive.
Yeah. Well, and if memory serves, and if you don't mind talking about this a little bit more, you also have kind of stepped into a role as far as like suicide prevention awareness and anti-bullying awareness, correct?
That's right. AJ was bullied, and that's what led him to take his own life. And so I've very much become an advocate against bullying, suicide awareness. And then the other thing is supporting the LGBTQ community because my son was bullied for being gay. And so I never foresaw that I would, be an ambassador of any of those things, but I have to be his voice now. And so
Wow.
that's part of his legacy.
And I, yeah, and I'm sorry that that's where you're at with that, but I love that you talk about being his voice and carrying on a legacy. That's something that has been sort of a resounding theme in different areas of my life, and I think most of the time we look at legacy, legacy is always at the end of our life, right? But we assume that's going to be in our 60s plus.
Right.
But sometimes sometimes it falls on us to help others carry out their legacy, and I think that's wonderful that you're doing that.
Thank you, Tyler. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. So now I'm going to kind of shift gears over to speaking directly to our listeners. As you think back, well, two different things. As you think back to kind of the beginning of your journey and then maybe, somewhere in between, what would you say to someone who's, struggling to find their passion would be one, and or they found what they think they want to do, but they're struggling to get that passion project off the ground?
I have helped a lot of other people in my circle to start their own small businesses just because I really feel like life is not worth living if you can't do something you love.
Amen.
So, I was really overwhelmed at the prospect of being a business owner. I didn't know what that entailed or how to do it. And I like to joke that it took me $50 to become a CEO. Just because
price of starting your LLC.
Yeah, exactly. I actually own an S corporation. And I do run an LLC. I'm actually a real estate investor for a side hustle.
Okay.
And I own a bed and breakfast too. Des Moines' only bed and breakfast. So I've got my fingers in a lot of pies. But for my circle of people who are around me, I really encourage them, and told them, here's the first step. You need to go to the Secretary of State and file some paperwork to start your own business, come up with a name. Here's a website you can go to that'll help you with your logos. Make sure that you don't scrimp on finding a competent attorney and a great CPA, and kind of held these people's hands in getting their own small business off the ground. So I've just tried to simplify the process in describing how to start your own business to people within my community.
Yeah.
And that gives me a tremendous amount of satisfaction too. I mean, great case in point, the guy who services my saltwater aquarium, he used to work for somebody who he couldn't stand. The guy was a micromanager.
Sure.
And controlling boss. And he would complain about his boss all the time. And I'd say, you have a doctorate in marine biology from the University of Hawaii. Why are you working for this guy who doesn't even have a degree,
Sure.
And so I helped him and encouraged him to start his own business. So, and that kind of gave me a bug for wanting to help other people with that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, and I mean, that's what this show is, same for me. Like, how can, with what I know, with who I know, how can I help other people? And so that's really kind of where the idea for doing this podcast came from, is, helping people, either find what they're doing or encouraging them, along the way. And I always say too, like, sometimes sometimes that's not a business. Sometimes that's just finding your passion in a hobby so that it makes it that much more, maybe your 8 to 5 isn't what you love, but if you can find something that you're passionate about outside those working hours, it makes it a whole lot easier to go and do that job that maybe you don't love.
Yeah, absolutely.
So one thing that I typically ask at the closer to the beginning, and I skipped over it because I started nerding out about the annuities and the life insurance. But Sheryl, tell us about your dreams when you were a kid. What did 7 or 10-year-old Sheryl want to be when she grew up?
So I was born in Pensacola, Florida. My
Okay.
dad was in the Navy. And that's not super close to Orlando, but I went to Disney World when I was a baby, and my parents like decorated my room in Walt Disney stuff. And growing up, I was a huge fan of Mickey Mouse. And I
Okay.
really wanted to be the Mickey Mouse that walked around at Disney World. That was my dream. Even up until I was in high school, I wanted to do that. And then I
Wow.
started doing some research on it when I was getting close to graduation and found out that I was not eligible to be the Mickey Mouse because I was too tall.
No kidding.
Yeah, I think if I remember right, I think you have to be 5'4" or less, if I remember right, in
Okay.
order in order to fit in the costume. So that you can't be Mickey Mouse if you're taller than 5'4".
Yeah.
And my dreams were crushed.
Just annihilated. I'm thinking like, wow, yeah, that dream would have gone out the window for me in like 6th grade, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. So honestly, that was what I wanted to do for a living, was be the Mickey Mouse at Disney World. I would say after that, during that time, I was employed by a regional grocery store called Hy-Vee.
Yep.
And I managed my store in the small town that I lived in. And so when my dreams were crushed, I kind of um, got grounded and realized, okay, well, maybe I want to be a manager at Hy-Vee instead of Mickey Mouse. And I got to that point where I was managing the Hy-Vee store, but then I became a stay-at-home mom. I had my little boy, and he had the birth defects and health problems. And so I had to become a stay-at-home mom, and really being the best mom that I could be became my best or goal at that time.
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
think beyond that, like, hey, what if I re-enter the workforce? What do I want to do? Or what's my dream? I didn't think of that. I just wanted to be the best mom I could.
Well, it sounds like you've had several different iterations in your journey as well. And I mean, I love that, what you're doing came from a place of necessity, but, blossomed into something that you love doing and you're super passionate about. I mean,
Yeah, I am.
now you're the Mickey Mouse of annuities and life insurance.
Absolutely. Well, I used to be a cheerleader in high school and college, and I like to joke that I'm the cheerleader of life insurance and annuities.
That's probably the Mickey Mouse was a little bit of a stretch, but I had
Yeah.
to, had to go for it.
No, I respect that.
Sheryl, I don't know. We didn't talk offline about this. So I always like to ask about books, and these don't have to be, geared toward pursuing your passion. If you have, one or two of them that's great. But what are 3 books that really inspired you, or what are your 3 favorite books? Like, what are some that you'd love to share with the listeners?
So I'm a bookworm. I always read in my spare time,
Right.
as if there's any room for that with all the
Exactly.
businesses that I run. But
She did air quotes around spare time for the listeners. That's why I was like, yep, I get that.
yeah. So my favorite book ever is called The Stand, and it's by Stephen King.
Yeah.
It's a super big book. And it's slow to start, but it's just amazing. He's so good at painting a picture in my head. I love that book. I recently read a book called Caste, Caste.
It's on my list.
Yeah. They just came out with a movie called Origin that's based on that book.
Okay.
actually, I think the movie launches in a couple weeks here, but it was a great book that talks about slavery and the caste system in India and Hitler's genocide of the Jews, and how our slavery system in the United States was very much like those other occurrences.
Right.
Let's see. And then I would say the most recent book that I read is called The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison.
Okay.
I really love all kinds of books, except for like, I'm not keen on self-help books or that genre, but I love to read biographies and autobiographies. And then Stephen King is my favorite author. So I have probably close to every book he's ever written.
Yeah. Yep. That there's a correlation between us for sure. When you said he creates, such a great pictures or creates such great pictures, I completely agree. It makes sense why so many of his books have been made into movies, because, probably so many people have read his books and think the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. He's very entertaining.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, Sheryl, this has been a lot of fun. Where can the listeners go to find out more about you or to get in touch with you? What website or social media or all the above?
So my phone number is 515-ANNUITY. That's pretty easy to remember.
I love it.
My website is winkintel.com, and that's WINKINTEL, short for intelligence.com. We have a free weekly newsletter that goes out and takes all of the news that's hit the web about life insurance and annuities in the week, and we compile it into one newsletter and send it out to folks. And we have over 100,000 that are signed up for that newsletter. So it goes out to a lot of people. And every article that I've ever written is out on the website. So if you're trying to educate yourself about life insurance or annuity products, I have a knack for explaining really complex products in easy to understand terms. So all of that is out on the website. And there's a lot of educational resources for people who are trying to research what is life insurance or what is an annuity.
Awesome.
That's all out on the website as well.
Perfect. Well, Sheryl, thanks again for your time. This has been a fun conversation, and hopefully some new tidbits of information for the listeners out there. And I would encourage you to definitely take advantage of those resources, because even if you're not ready to think about that for yourself, which, if you're over 18, you probably should, you've definitely got a parent or a grandparent that definitely needs to be thinking about it. And Sheryl and her team are a wonderful resource. So, Sheryl, thanks again for being a part of the show.
Thanks so much for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Awesome. And to all the rest of you, keep pursuing your passions.
If you have questions or would like to contact us, please check out the show details for contact information. Thanks for listening to the Pursue Your Passion podcast.